Welcome to Sports Saved My Life. My name is Clayton Freck, and I'm the CEO and founder of Angel City Sports. We know the power of sport to change and in some cases save lives. We hear these compelling stories every day, and we created this show to share them with the world. Enjoy the show, and remember to like, follow, share, and comment. So today I'm thrilled to welcome Paralympian and sitting volleyball player John Kremer to the show. John was born in Middletown, Ohio, a town of about 50,000 people, somewhere between Cincinnati and Dayton. Currently lives in Beaufort, Georgia. He served 9 years in the Navy as an explosive ordnance disposal technician, first class. I hope I got that right, John. In 2010, I think, he stepped on a landmine, ended up losing both of his legs below the knee. He's an accomplished volleyball player. Going back to just a few years after his injury, in fact, he competed at the Warrior Games in 2013 and 2014. That led him to the Invictus Games in 2014, where he won a silver medal in sitting volleyball. In 2016, he was on the team that competed in the Rio Paralympics. And in 2019, he won a silver medal for Team USA at the Pan American Games down in Lima, Peru. He joined us for the Angel City Virtual Games presented by the Hartford last year during the pandemic. And while he lives across the country from us, he's a huge supporter of our efforts to grow the movement. And we're just grateful for his time today. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You got it. All right. So the show Sports Saved My Life. What comes to mind when I say that? How does that resonate with you?
Sports has been a big part of my life. Since the time I was a kid to now. So it's helped me out in basically everything that I've done.
And where do you think you would be in life without sport? Maybe in particular, adaptive sport?
I don't know. I'd probably be sitting on a couch somewhere playing video games, doing nothing. Honestly, sports has gotten me to be more proactive and more active, not just in sports, but physical activity and also in my community and stuff as well.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. Give me one sentence that describes you.
Hopefully energetic.
That's one word.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
You can use more than one word.
And we'll go with energetic.
All right. So back it all the way up to childhood. Give me a sense of what the environment was like that you were raised, your parents, your community. What kind of kid were you?
So I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Navy. I was raised in Washington State, a small island. The town was called Oak Harbor. I played a lot of sports growing up. My family was very into sports. My mom and dad both, helped us out with anything we needed for any of our sporting events and stuff like that. And it wasn't just me, but my two sisters also played sports growing up.
Sisters, older or younger?
I have an older sister and a younger sister.
Okay.
All of us were multi-sport athletes. And from the time I was probably about 4 or 5 till, I was in the military, I wrestled for the Navy for a year. And then after getting hurt, of course, getting into the adaptive sports and stuff like that.
So growing up, you wrestled. What else? What were your other favorite sports?
So my sports growing up, I was baseball, football, basketball. And then I started wrestling in middle school. So I was playing at one time, I was actually on 4 different teams. So I was on a school basketball team, the wrestling team, football, and also on a travel basketball team. So I was playing 4 sports at one time. I think it was in 7th grade for a couple months just because the sports overlapped. So those were my big sports. And then, of course, when I got into high school, I had to choose between wrestling and basketball. And obviously I'm not a tall person, so I went with wrestling.
All right. So you kind of, you specialized in wrestling at some point. Give me a sense of what kind of kid were you growing up?
I mean, I was always outside. Me and my friends were either playing some type of sport or, doing something outside. Most of the time, our parents had to call us in to, come eat lunch or do something in the house to help out and stuff. But I mean, most of the time is spent outside just having fun.
And the town you grew up in, primarily Washington, it was small?
Yeah, it was a pretty small town. I mean, it was a military community. But I mean, it had that hometown feel, small hometown feel. So,
and did you get in any trouble as a kid?
I mean, not really too much trouble. I wasn't a big troublemaker. I think sports kind of kept me down the straight and narrow path. So
that's cool. That's good. Everyone's got a story, but they don't always share.
I mean, I've never really gotten too much trouble, hanging out with my friends and stuff, and I don't know, maybe breaking a window or two or something with a baseball or something. But I wasn't really a big troublemaker when I was younger. So
yeah, you're too nice of a guy. You're too nice of a guy. Tell me about your parents. What were they like?
I mean,
were they together for your whole childhood and
yeah. So my parents, of course, my dad was in the military, so he would go on deployments here and there and stuff. Miss some of our sporting events.
Was he in the Navy?
Yeah, he was in the Navy. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, he'd miss some of our sporting events or school events, stuff like that. I mean, it came with being in the military. Fairly strict. As long as we got good grades and stuff like that, we were allowed to play sports and do whatever we wanted. As soon as we started getting bad grades, the rope got tightened a little bit and you weren't allowed to do as much and stuff like that. So that was one of the reasons why I felt like I got good grades and did fairly well. Is just because of the military, not military style family, but more of a more strict type of family to, make sure we were going down the right path. I mean, my parents actually didn't split up until I was 24, 25 years old. And they ended up getting divorced years later after I'd already been in the military for a couple of years and stuff. So
yeah. You're close to to all the guys you grew up with. So it was we a pretty tight crew.
I would say there's a couple guys that I still talk to from when I was younger and stuff. I am friends because when I joined the military, I actually got stationed where I grew up. So a lot of my friends were still there and stuff growing up. So it was really cool to, go back and see them and talk to them and stuff, because I didn't go to high school with them. I actually moved between my 8th grade and 9th grade year from Washington to Ohio. So I did high school in Ohio. So it was really cool to see them and, talk to them because I didn't get to go to high school and stuff with them. So it was pretty cool.
So you bounced around a bit then.
Mm-hmm. I basically spent kindergarten. Well, I think it was 3 when we moved to Washington, and then about 8th grade, the end of my 8th grade year, transferred to Ohio.
So not as bad as maybe some of these military families that are. It feels like almost sometimes every 2 or 3 years they're on the road, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Did you? I mean, you were a good student. You were a good athlete. Did you have any challenges growing up, or was life pretty chill for you?
I mean, I want to say it was pretty chill, but I didn't really have too many challenges other than trying to beat other kids out on teams and stuff like that. I mean, I really had a pretty good, childhood and stuff like that. I can't complain. So
that's good. That's good. Yeah. And did your sisters treat you well, or did they just harass you because you were the one boy?
Well, that's the funny thing is I think the competitiveness between all 3 of us growing up is actually what made us better athletes. So, my sister was doing really good in softball, so I had to do better in baseball, or, my sister shot a really good game of basketball, so I had to be better than her at that. So that kind of led to, my older sister was good. I was a little bit better than my older sister. And then our little sister was a better athlete than all of us. So,
but what did she end up doing sport wise?
So she ended up playing I think volleyball and softball and basketball in high school. But I think she ended up having a kid right after high school. So she didn't really get into sports after high school.
Yeah.
And of course, the weird thing is, so I was a senior when my little brother was born. I was a senior in high school when my little brother was born. So we do have I have 3 other siblings. I have an older sister, a younger sister, and then a little brother who's like 18 years younger than I am. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you're like a dad to him.
That's, like, I kind of feel like it sometimes, like yelling at him, like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that.
Does he listen to you though?
Occasionally. I like to think so.
How old is he now?
So he actually graduated last year, 19 or 20 is when he graduated. So he's just starting into the workforce and stuff like that. So.
All right. Very cool. So talk to me about the decision to join the military. Was it straight out of high school? You go to college? Like what was the path?
So I was looking at college and stuff like that. Like I was looking at wrestling in college and stuff. I took a year off. I worked for the Air Force at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Sure. I worked in their service thing, which is for the Navy. It's the MWR. Basically, it's the morale, welfare, and recreation. So like all their sporting events. I helped out at a youth center, and I got involved with their youth sports program. So I helped with some of the youth sports program, but I basically maintained like the baseball fields, the softball fields, the soccer fields, and helped set up like the basketball stuff.
So a typical military base has pretty good sports facilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, they're not going to be top of the line, but they're definitely not the worst you'll see.
Because I've only seen Camp Pendleton, which is seemed pretty sweet. I didn't see everything they have there, but it seemed like it was a pretty good setup. So in general, there are pretty good facilities.
Yes.
All right. So that's your first job out of high school. You're like maintaining fields and
Yeah, so originally I was going to be like a counselor or like a thing to help out with like the youth, just like help watching kids and stuff after school. And then it kind of turned into like they found out that I was into sports, so I kind of helped out in the sports programs and stuff like that.
Okay. And then from there, you decided to join the Navy.
Yep. I had to get out of Ohio somehow, so I joined the Navy.
Yeah, you got to be careful because in the Air Force, you might be stuck at Wright-Patterson, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So how did you pick? So you picked the Navy, but how did you pick the Navy?
So my dad was in the Navy. And of course, I think my mom was in the reserves at the time. So my mom had just joined the Navy, I guess, probably a little bit before my dad retired in 2001. And
so that's funny. So your dad retires from the Navy and then your mom joins the Navy.
Yeah, it was like right as like my dad was going out, my mom was coming into the Navy and stuff. So, but yeah, like growing up, like seeing like the SEALs and stuff like that. And there's like I tell everybody this story of when I was younger. I think I was maybe like 10 or so. Me and my friends were riding our bikes. We saw this big plane go overhead. Like, oh, that's cool. We saw they were going towards the harbor. So me and my friends hopped on our bikes and ran down to the beach. And, we saw these dudes jumping out of the planes into the water. Like, oh, that's really cool. I want to do that. And then, they got in their boats and went over to the shore. Well, it turns out years later, that was the EOD command that I ended up working at, 20 some years later. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right. So you always had, obviously with your dad, and then you sort of had some ideas that the Navy was sort of cool and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And so those early moments, did you know you wanted to get into ordnance, or did that sort of land in your lap? How did you end up kind of picking your career path?
So
as it sounds like the most terrifying job possible.
When I was actually my dad's last contract as a Navy recruiter. So I signed up as a corpsman SEAL to go in the SEAL program. And then, of course, I didn't go in.
Wait, hold on. Your dad is the recruiter who brings you in.
Yeah. So that was my dad's last duty station, was to be a recruiter in his hometown of Franklin, Middletown area. So he was the military recruiter. And
that's hysterical. I never heard such a story. The guy who recruits his own kid. That's one way to get your number.
That was the thing. It was like, that was his retirement thing, was I was going to be his last thing, or last person recruited in the military was going to be me. Well, I decided, I was going to try to go to college and stuff, and college plans didn't really work out. So I started working for the Air Force, and then I was like, I got to get out of Ohio. So I went back to my dad. I was like, hey, I want to join the military. He was like, okay, if you're going to the Navy, you got to do some type of special program. So I was like, okay. So I started looking more into it, and I found out about EOD. I kind of knew about them, but I didn't really know like the full details about what EOD did. And then they started explaining it to me. They're like, oh yeah, you can, blow stuff up. You're going to jump out of airplanes. You're going to scuba dive. You're going to do all this really cool, fun stuff. And I was like, sign me up. It's like a little kid's dream job. I get to roll around the mud, shoot guns, and blow stuff up, jump out of airplanes, and then go scuba diving. Yep, I'm there. Let me do it.
What year is this?
So I graduated high school in 2002. And
so it's post 9/11.
Yes. So this is right after 9/11. So I graduated in like March, April, May timeframe of 2002. And then I ended up going to boot camp about a year later in July of 2003.
So you weren't motivated by 9/11 or anything. It was more getting you out of Ohio.
For me, yeah, it was more of that.
And why did you need to get out of Ohio?
I just I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. So the trees, the mountains and stuff like that. I mean, they had some of that there in Ohio, but it's not nearly as beautiful. So,
I mean, they have trees there.
Yeah. Not like Washington.
Definitely not like Washington. And the rivers aren't the same either.
No, they're not. They are not.
Not as wild. Okay, so you look at all the jobs and the ordnance job just jumps off the page to you.
Yeah, so the funny fact about that is I got very lucky in the fact that I got to join EOD coming straight into the Navy. Normally it's a job where you have before they started the program where I got into, you would have to be in the military, become an E5, and then you would go back through and apply to go through EOD. Well, after 9/11, they were trying to field and try to get more EOD techs into the community and stuff like that. So they came up with a plan to allow people coming straight into the military to apply for EOD. So what you would do, a normal, before I joined, it was you would join the Navy, you would have a rate, you'd go work in that career field until you became an E5, and then you could come back and apply through and go through EOD school. When I signed up, it was you would go through boot camp, you would go through your trade school, and then you would go through dive school and then EOD school. And if at some point you failed out, you would have that career field to fall back on, and then you'd go back out to the Navy. So,
but was it your dad that bypassed all the did he just slide you in, or it was just a weird window in how they were recruiting? It
was actually a weird window that I was very lucky and very fortunate that I got into. My dad didn't even know that at the time, because that was one of the reasons why I was going to go SEAL, because you could go straight into the SEAL program. And then they opened it up to EOD, and I was like, well, this seems a lot better. It's more academically motivated and stuff like that, because you gotta, all this stuff's classified, so you can't, take stuff home to study. You got to be very good at memorizing stuff and learning stuff very quickly.
So at the time, are you? Because I think we're at some point pretty soon there, where we're already in Afghanistan,
mm-hmm.
and are we talking about Iraq and the search for weapons of mass destruction? So it seems like there's going to be a lot of work for this.
Yes, yeah. So when I was going through boot camp and A school and stuff, I think is when we actually went into Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was, going through dive school and EOD school, they were really looking to get more guys into the community. So they kind of cut, I don't want to say they cut our training, but they scaled back some of the non-essential stuff we needed for training.
Mm-hmm.
So normally the pipeline, you would go through dive school, EOD school, you go through jump school and some other stuff. Well, they cut out some of the non-essential stuff. So you didn't really need jump school and stuff like that to go over to Iraq and stuff. So when I graduated EOD school, I didn't get the full pipeline as in going through jump school and stuff like that. Because they needed bodies out in the field. So I went to my mobile unit. I did a deployment. When I came off my deployment, that's when I went back through and did jump school and some of the other schools that I had missed. So,
And the jump school feels relevant for certain types of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't feel as relevant for a major ground conflict, maybe.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why they kind of scaled it back and stuff. So,
all right. So you survived boot camp, I guess. How'd you do at boot camp?
I mean, boot camp really wasn't too bad. Like,
I mean, if you were going to go into the SEALs, you should have crushed boot camp.
Well, yeah, like that's the thing is like I was already preparing to go in, you know, to like dive school and stuff like that. So like boot camp wasn't really that hard for me. But I was actually the person that was in charge of our PT at one point, and they kind of kicked me out of it because I was making people like do too many push-ups and too many sit-ups and stuff like that. Like, you're not going to do this anymore. I was like, okay.
You were making it harder for your fellow recruits.
Yes.
So you cruise through boot camp, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then how they alter the training program. So how soon after you joined are you in your first deployment? And just put us into the mindset of a 19, 20-year-old that's now flying halfway across the world to blow stuff up.
Well, so my boot camp, I think it was 8 weeks long. And then I had like a 4-month-long A school. So I was a hull tech. So I learned how to weld and pipe fitting and sheet metal work and stuff like that. And then I was actually on the Navy wrestling team after A school for probably 6 months, I think it was. And then after that, you go into this thing, what's called PSI. Basically, you're a student under instruction. You either go to like a mobile unit or a dive locker or something where you learn about diving and stuff like that. So I did that for a couple months, and then I went through dive school, which is 8 weeks long. And then you go through EOD school, which was, I think it was about 12 months at the time. Yeah, 12 months at the time. So it's about a year-long process.
Training program.
Yeah, so by the time, so I joined in July of 2003. I actually didn't get to my first mobile unit until August of 2005, I think it was. So almost 2.5 full years of school. And then, we do, I think it was like a 7 or 8 month workup. So basically all your training to lead you to go into where you're going. So you find out kind of like whereabouts you're going to go, and then they, tailor your training program and stuff for that. So, I mean, my first deployment wasn't until, I think 2006 or 2007. Or it was like the end of 2006 into 2007.
And where did you go?
So I went to actually one of the hottest places in Iraq at the time. I went to Tikrit. So the FOB was Bob Spiker.
Tikrit was where Hussein had a house there.
That was where he was born and where he lived. And I was actually stationed at Bob Wilson, and Bob Wilson is actually where Saddam was found in his spider hole, like right around the corner from that. And that happened, very shortly before we got over there, before my team got over there. So, I mean, it was one of the hottest spots, right after Ramadi and stuff like that in the northern part of Iraq. It definitely was the hottest.
Because the Ba'ath Party was so strong there, and they're still just like they were
going through everything and still wrecking everything, going through things. So I think in a 6 month period, so in 180 days, me and my teammate, who was another guy that came straight into EOD, we were actually running for who had the most IEDs or missions ran in a 6 month period. I think by the end of our 6 month deployment, we were between like 350 and 400 missions completed in 180 some days.
All right. So explain a mission. Is that you identifying and disarming an IED on a road or what?
Yeah. So it really depends. So like we have different mission sets. So like one day you'd be running IEDs. Some days you'd be supporting a different element, supporting a special forces unit, going through and doing a raid on a house, or, going through a weapons cache or something. So there's different missions. So like each time you go out, so like, let's say you get called out on IED, that's a mission. And then on your way back, you get rerouted to do another mission, another IED. And then you're going back to base and you get rerouted to do another mission. So, I mean, I think 24-hour period, I think I did like 5 or 6 IEDs in one day.
So when you do an IED, is there a mission that's like in operation and they see the IED or they identify it and then they bring you in to disarm it, or are you with them?
So on my first deployment, we were basically a supporting element. So we supported the movements and like missions of like the Army or whoever we were with. So they'd be on a mission and they would spot something suspicious, or they see an IED, they would call us in, we'd go out and take care of it. The other one is route clearance. I actually was never really part of route clearance missions until my deployment in Afghanistan. But a route clearance mission is basically you're clearing the route. You have like engineers that go and clear and they find IEDs, and then you just pull up, take care of it, and then you continue on driving down the road, finding more IEDs.
Is one type of mission more dangerous?
I mean, they're all pretty dangerous. And I think with route clearance, I mean, you're expecting to get blown up just because you're searching for it. So basically you're trying to clear it and make sure the road's safe for other people to pass. When you're actually supporting an element and stuff like that, you're kind of just stumbling upon them. So, I mean, they're both serious and they're both dangerous no matter how you look at it. So
yeah. Did you see the movie Hurt Locker?
Yeah.
And what do you think of that movie?
It's good cinematics.
But it's not that realistic.
No. I don't know. I mean, I alone can barely carry a 155 shell, let alone grab like a thing of det cord and pull up 5 or 6 of them with one pull. It's hard enough like carrying one of those things around just with one of them. So, I mean, there are some good parts about it. I mean, it brought to light the EOD community, and it spotlighted what the EOD community kind of does in a sense. Now, is it realistic? No, it's not realistic. So,
but made for good.
Yeah, made good cinematics.
It would be really fun to watch that movie with you and just have you like point out all of
that. My wife hates watching military movies with me because I'm like, oh, that's not realistic. She's like, shut up. I'm trying to watch the movie.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
So funny. So at some point you step on an IED. Before that point though, were there some, memorable, situations where you sort of barely got out of them, or just kind of wild or crazy situations that just stick to your mind? I mean, I think most of us have a tremendous amount of respect for military, but I don't think we can really appreciate what the day-to-day life is out there.
I mean, I think I remember like bits and pieces of like every deployment I've been on. Like there's some stuff where you're like kind of doing the same stuff every day and it just kind of gets monotonous and stuff like that. But there's like bits and pieces of like each deployment that you like carry with you and you like really enjoyed or you really hated. Like from my first deployment to my fourth deployment on my last deployment, there was bits and pieces of like, oh crap, I can't believe we just, did that, or, ooh, that might've been a little bit too close, or you probably should have been back a little bit further. There's always that, oh shit moment, but
so you had a bunch of those oh shit moments.
I mean, you're like 20 something years old. Of course you're going to have a couple oh shit moments because you're like, oh crap, we might've been a little bit too close on that one. So, but I mean, it comes with the learning curve. Like we were, we had just gotten a new vehicle, the Jerb and stuff at the time. So like, oh yeah, it can take bigger explosions. So you're like, oh, we can get a little bit closer with this. And you set something off and it's like, yeah, maybe we should have been back a little bit further.
You would set something off and like go run and get into the vehicle to sort of keep yourself safe.
Oh no, we were in the vehicle all like most of the time. There was, you do some stuff on foot, but like when you're like setting stuff off, you're always inside a vehicle. Like you need that that protection and stuff. So.
And are you using a lot of robot?
Yeah, one thing that I was really good at was driving the robot. A lot of that came from playing a lot of video games and stuff growing up.
I was just going to say that makes you a good gamer.
Yeah.
Being a good gamer made you a good robot controller.
Exactly. So like, I was really good with the robot. Like I could do a lot of stuff like some of the guys couldn't do. And that was one of the reasons why me and my buddy on my first deployment were kind of fighting back and forth who had the most IEDs and missions run, because we were both really good robot drivers. So like we were bouncing around we would kind of get pushed to different teams to help them out. And So like he went to help out and replace a couple robots at a different location. So I was not only running my team as a robot driver, but his team while he was gone, helping out on that mission. So I was running 2 teams as a robot driver. So I would sit in the back of the turf, just, sleeping and stuff, going back and forth between missions. I'd wake up, run the robot, and then go back to bed.
So describe a typical robot mission just for everyone, because does the robot set it off, or does the robot sort of set a trap and then the robot runs away so the robot doesn't get injured?
A little bit of both. So in all my deployments, I've only personally lost one robot where it actually got blown up.
Out of hundreds and hundreds of missions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was very fortunate, and I like to say I was good.
You're just good.
I was very fortunate. Fortunate to only lose one robot. But it just depended on the mission, what you were doing and stuff. A lot of times you would take explosives down with you with the robot. You would look at the area, and you would kind of assess if you could actually blow the stuff up on the side of the road, or if you had to take it out. Of course, you're trying to get intelligence off the IDs to try to find the bomb makers and stuff like that. But it just depends on situational dependent.
So for example, would a robot put another explosive device next to an IED in order to blow that up?
Yes. But that, like I said, that's all dependent on the situation. So if you have an IED next to a big inhabited building and stuff like that, you're not going to blow it up. You're going to try to disarm it and try to get it out of there. But in certain situations, the one that my robot blew up on an IED was underneath an overpass. Of course, we weren't looking to try to blow it up underneath there. We were trying to, get it out of there so we could save the overpass and stuff like that. So like I said, it's just basic, common sense. You don't want to blow up a 15-story building in the middle of downtown LA. You want to try to get the stuff out of there and move it, somewhere else and then dispose of it. But if you're in the side of the road out in the middle of the desert, who cares about the road out in the middle of the desert? You're gonna blow it up.
So how it makes sense to sort of plant explosives and blow up an IED, but how does a robot disarm an IED?
I can't really get into specifics, but basically you're just trying to disrupt it. That's all you're trying to do. You're not you're not trying to cut wires or anything like that. You're just trying to separate batteries and stuff like that. So.
Gotcha. So that seems like dangerous work for the poor robot. So it's a miracle that you only lost one robot.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming these are not cheap robots.
I don't know. I think a Talon robot, is probably $100,000, $200,000, somewhere around there. But they're pretty expensive.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy. All right, and you've continued this robot career and still playing video games. So that's the best part of the story. Let's take a quick break to learn more about the Equipment Loaner Program at Angel City Sports.
Part of our mission at Angel City Sports is to eliminate all barriers to participation in adaptive sports. Providing free adaptive sports equipment is a major component to this objective. Each individual piece of equipment can cost more than $3,000. Can you imagine if running shoes cost that much? So we're building an inventory of adaptive sports equipment to support our clinics, competitions, partner programs, and to loan out to emerging local athletes. Currently, we have racing wheelchairs, throwing chairs, and sport wheelchairs, perfect for tennis and basketball. If you or an athlete you know need a piece of adaptive sports equipment, visit the Equipment Opportunities page at angelcitysports.org. If you are interested in donating equipment or supporting the Equipment Loaner Program, email us at info@angelcitysports.org.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the day you stepped on the IED and what was special about that day and what happened, in when you got injured.
I was over in Afghanistan. It was my first deployment in Afghanistan.
So you had how many deployments in Iraq?
3. I was 3 in Iraq before.
Okay, so 4th deployment. Now you're in Afghanistan. Totally. Did it seem different, or what was your take in the environment and the context there?
I wouldn't say it was much different. Both countries are kind of similar. definitely a lot more mountainous and more like beautiful like area in Afghanistan, I think, than Iraq. But they both had like they were kind of similar, but they were different, like a different feel to it. So. If that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. And so how far into the deployment was your injury date, and kind of what was the mission?
So I think we were about 4.5 months into our deployment of a 6-month deployment. So we were getting kind of close to being home. Maybe it was at the 4-month mark. I can't remember.
Whatever.
It was May, July, August, September. So yeah, 4 months. Almost 4 months to the date. But that morning, the day before, we had drove up to Imam Sahid to kind of prep for the mission that we were getting ready to do. The mission was to take control of Gorgon Tepe Hill. It's basically like this big plateau. My computer's getting ready.
Your computer's like an airplane.
Yeah. But we go up to Imam Sahid. They're going to take over Gorgon Tepe Hill because it's a big plateaued area, and you can kind of see back into Imam Sahid. It was during the election, so they wanted to be able to see the Taliban moving in through the city to kind of unhinge some of the election or kind of disrupt the election. So we were tasked to kind of help clear the plateau of mines that they knew that was in the area. So the morning of the mission, we did our briefs and stuff. We hopped in our vehicles and we started rolling up to Gorgon Tepe Hill. On the way up, we encountered 2 IEDs going to the hill. So our team took care of them, got them off the road and stuff, and we kept going. We got to the hill, and we started. Me and my teammates started clearing the hill. We pushed up. I want to say it was like the west side of the hill to the north, and then to the northeast side of the hill.
And you're on foot at this point? You're out of the vehicles?
Yeah. So once we got up to the area, we dismounted, started walking, and we started clearing. And then definitely on our foot for the rest of the day. And then got up there, cleared all the way to the far side. There was some old Russian APCs and stuff up there. So it was making it hard with the metal detectors to kind of like find stuff, just because there was like metal fragments from, was it the 80s when Russia was there, just like scattered all over the hillside and stuff. So
in other words, the metal detector is sort of going off all the time, and it's hard to...
Yeah, you can kind of pick up on different pings and stuff like that, but the mines we were trying to find were plastic, and the metal that was in them was very, very small. So like our metal detectors were kind of not, or my metal detector wasn't really working too well. But it was, doing its job, kind of clearing their way. I put my teammate Lance in the lower threat area, and I took the higher threat area, just because I was a little bit more experienced than he was. This was his first deployment. And so I made sure like he was in more of like the safer area, clearing and stuff. So I ended up stepping on the landmine, kind of getting thrown up a little bit and landing back down. We instantly, kind of knew something was wrong. Had like a bunch of dirt in my eyes. It was black. You couldn't really see too much. And then kind of started coming to...
You knew you were alive. You were conscious.
Yeah, I was conscious. Like I knew something had happened. I didn't know what happened. My initial thought that I got hit by a mortar, like right off the bat, like I thought I got hit by a mortar. And like when I hit the ground, I was like, man, that didn't happen. Like that just didn't happen. And like when I started...
You're in denial. Like,
yeah, like instantly. And like I lifted up my left leg and was like, oh crap. Like I started staring down my shin and I didn't see my foot. I was like, oh crap, I lost my left foot. And then I picked up my right foot and I saw my toes. I was like, oh, okay, I still got my right foot. We're good. So I started to like put on tourniquets on my left leg. And like as I would like lean forward and like try to put a tourniquet on my leg, like as soon as my leg like dropped down below, like just shooting pain through it. And like I was almost getting to the tourniquet by the time my teammate got there. He started putting tourniquets on my legs, and then cleared the area, and then brought the medic over to me. The medic started, getting IVs in me and getting me prepped for transport. And they started clearing back down the way we came, because or my teammates started clearing back down the way we came, because obviously we had to clear it again, just because you don't know if we missed something, since we had already cleared it and stepped on.
You're not able to sort of hustle out of there.
It was still kind of like slow and methodical. Like the best thing that they started doing, and what we kind of told them, is just try to step in footprints that you'd already seen on the ground, because that area is kind of clear. So they started clearing. We got me off the hillside. I got medevac back to the trauma center. And then I guess later on in the day, I don't know how much later or how far after I got hurt, I guess another soldier ended up stepping on one and ended up losing one of his legs as well. So
in the same place,
in the same area, yeah. Like in the same general area. I don't know exactly where he got hurt. I just know it was back up on that hill. Like I said, I don't know exactly where.
So it was a pretty notorious hill, sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like when they mined it, because a couple weeks or a couple months before that, we were up there doing rock clearance, or helping out a rock clearance unit, and they ended up losing one of their vehicles on that same road, just a little bit past where Gorgon Tepe Hill was, and we had to medevac a couple of people out of there in that same area. So
I've always wondered this. I'd love your take on it. So, because I'm sort of a history fan, war history fan as well. So when an area like that gets mined, it seems just as treacherous for the enemy that mined it as for their enemy. So how do they manage that?
I mean, like anytime you do, like, think of like what you do for like planning like this interview or this podcast. You have like step-by-step things. You have, like diagrams, what you're reading off of and stuff like that. Basically, when you like mine an area or you do something, like you would think you would do the same thing, but how you pass it on to like your peers or within, your cell or, your terrorist group or whatever. I mean, I don't know how they do that, or let each other know that, there's mines in the area, stuff like that, to be careful. But
is that hilltop sounds strategic and important?
Yeah, it really is.
That's wild. Okay, so you get medevaced out. You go to the nearest trauma center at one of the bases in Afghanistan.
Yep. So I ended up going to, it's a German PRT, which is a German base, but the trauma center was manned by Navy medics. And I only know this because one of the guys on one of our support personnel, our CB, ended up cutting his finger pretty seriously with a circular saw. So we had to take him over there to get it kind of stitched back on. A couple months before I got hurt. So we got to meet most of the medical staff that was on staff there and stuff during that. So when I got wheeled in there and they all kind of see me, I was like, oh crap, you know this guy. We met him a couple months ago or a month ago.
And where's your head at this whole time?
I was more concerned of, what the future would hold for my team. So like the guys that were on my team. So when I was actually getting prepped for the OR and stuff, the two other teams that were there in Kunduz, those guys were standing right outside that waiting room. And so once they got everything set up, when they started wheeling me out, like I saw all those guys and I was like, shit, these guys got to spend like another month or two, thinking about what just happened to me, rather than, trying to keep their head focused on what's in front of them and stuff like that for the rest of the deployment.
So you're not even thinking about yourself at this point.
I mean, I'm already out of the fight. I got hurt. I already knew I was missing my left foot. So like I was more worried about what was going to happen with those guys than what was really going to happen to me. So
and you say it's so matter of fact, and the reality is losing a leg is pretty traumatic for most people, and it has all kinds of downstream impacts on people's lives. So is there a piece of this where you, because you were in the military and you obviously probably knew a lot of people that had been injured over the years, so you felt, did you know in your heart you were going to be okay? Actually,
no. So when I got to Bethesda, when I got flown, so I went from Germany to launch school, was there for like, I really don't know how long I was there because I kind of time traveled with all the drugs and surgeries and stuff. But when they flew me back to the States, like I was fully expecting to be in a wheelchair for a couple of years, not not being able to do anything and stuff. When I found out that I was actually missing my heel on my right foot and having to make the decision to amputate my right leg rather than try to save it. I mean, that was, kind of not really heartbreaking, but like more disheartening, trying to, figure out what I'm going to do with no legs rather than, having one leg.
And that decision you don't have to make that decision until you're in Bethesda, which is the Bethesda Naval Hospital historically. It's actually where I was born, if you can believe that. But now it's called Walter Reed.
Yeah. But like, so before I got hurt, there was one other Navy guy that ended up getting hurt. He ended up losing a leg to an EFP. That was on like my second or third deployment when that happened. But there was one of my friends ended up losing his, I think it's his left leg to a motorcycle accident in San Diego. So his foot kind of got pulled off from his bottom of his leg. They tried to sew it back on, got everything going, but he kept getting bone infection after bone infection and stuff like that. And eventually, like right before we deployed, he had his leg amputated, and like it was like night and day. Like he was up moving around, moving around on his prosthetic and stuff like that. And I did actually some of my recovery with him. I mean, of course, he was a lot further along than I was, but like I didn't really know too much about prosthetics. I didn't know, what was, in the future for me. Like I just knew, I'm missing both my legs. Like, oh my God, I'm going to be, in a wheelchair for, probably the rest of my life.
Really? So you just try to simplify this. When thinking about losing one leg, it didn't seem like you were too stressed about that. But when it went to the second leg that and I want to understand that decision, because that's not an easy decision to make, to amputate a leg. And I had to go through that with my son when he was 2 years old. But it was once you realized sort of both legs were gone was where it really hit you.
Yeah. So when they told me, I'm missing my heel and, you can't really make a heel pad or the heel bone or anything like that. And, they're talking about taking other parts of muscles, skin grafts, bone grafts and stuff like that. And then after, seeing my buddy go through the reconstructive surgery and getting bone infections and stuff like that, I was like, that doesn't sound like it's going to work. Like, I didn't think it would be like possible. So the funny thing is my wife was pregnant during my last deployment and my daughter was born 12 days before I got hurt. So when I got to Bethesda, my wife had to wait for the 2-week clear thing to find out if she could fly with our newborn daughter to see me in Bethesda. So when I was going through all my surgeries and stuff like that, I had to wait for my wife to come out. It was like, well, do you want to amputate your leg or do you want to, try to start doing the heel reconstruction? I was like, can we wait till my wife comes out here? So my wife's a nurse and she knows more about the medical stuff than I do. So she's like, yes, we'll wait. We'll wait till your wife gets out here. She'll be out here tomorrow. So it's not really, too much lost if, it's only a day. So when my wife got out there, we kind of talked about it and I was like 95% sure I was going to have my right leg amputated anyway. But like when my wife got there, she goes, well, I mean, it's really up to you, but it sounds like might be a little bit better to, amputate your leg. So I was like, okay, fine. We're doing this. I'm just going to go ahead and amputate my right leg. So I went in for surgery, I had my leg amputated and then got back up to the room. The next morning, the doctor came in during rounds and stuff and we, kind of talking and she goes, you probably saved a year of recovery amputating your leg now because I'd probably have to take your leg probably a year from now. So that kind of eased my burden of, having my right leg amputated, knowing that. But I mean, there's still that chance that I could have one leg. But, once I made that decision, like I don't regret it one bit. So.
And I mean, thank God your wife was able to get there and help you with the decision. And it's not a decision you want to put on anybody, but it's an important one. I see in the community, after an amputation, especially of a young, vibrant man, I see this sort of emotional drop. I mean, women, it hits women too. And it's not a gender thing, but I think adults, when they face these challenges, there's often this sort of emotional bottoming out.
Mm-hmm.
How did you do surgery, and were you able to kind of stay, with a more positive mindset, or did you sort of slip?
I think a lot of it was, like the drugs, like all the Dilaudid, all the morphine and stuff that I was on. But like, I mean, I was super bummed, like I said, like I thought I was gonna be in a wheelchair forever. And, like I thought of that through the whole 3 weeks that I was in the hospital, like every day, like, oh, this is gonna be miserable. This is gonna be my life, going in and out of hospitals, being on my backside for, the rest of my life. The one thing that kind of cheered me up and made me, get after it a little bit more was when I got to San Diego after all my surgeries. My legs were stitched up. So about 3 weeks after my injury, I went to Balboa, the C5 clinic, and, they have the peer mentor relationship stuff that was kind of going on at the time. And one of the dudes came up, started talking about, all of his different legs. He had a leg for running, leg for snowboarding, for surfing, for doing all this other stuff. It's like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like I can, maybe start getting back into stuff. And, but it was always in the back of my mind is like, this guy only has one leg though. Like, what does he know about, guys being in two legs? He was like, started talking to him about it and stuff. And, kind of made it a little bit easier and made it like a little bit not as painful. Knowing that.
Why didn't they give you a peer mentor that was missing two legs? That seems
there wasn't really that many in the military at the time. There was only a couple bilateral amputees at the C5 clinic, and they were basically in the same position I was, maybe a little bit further along than I was in my recovery.
Yeah, so they weren't really that helpful. Yeah.
So once that got done, I went home. I was only in Balboa for like a night or two, and then I was discharged to my home. And, it was kind of weird going back to our place, moving around in a wheelchair. I think I slept on the couch, so I had to go to physical therapy and prosthetics the next day. So when my wife took me into prosthetics the very next day, our prosthetist, Peter Harsh, I don't know if you know who Peter Harsh is.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he's one of the big prosthetic guys here in the California area. Super energetic guy. He was like, oh yeah, we're going to get you up on your legs next week as soon as the stitches come out. I was like, what? Like, yeah, we're going to get you up. You're going to be get your first set of prosthetics, and you're going to start walking next week. I was like, what? Like, wait. So you're telling me I'm not going to be in a wheelchair for a long time? It's like, no, we're going to get you up moving next week. It's like, okay. So that like really, I think that kind of like changed the outlook and like,
wow,
the mentality. Like,
and it happened really quick. I mean, you were barely out of the hospital.
Yeah. So I was very surprised, like, only like a week or so, like basically you just had to wait for your stitches to get out and you can get on your prosthetic. I was like, okay, we can do this. This is going to be really fun. So then that's like when my whole mindset changed. Is like, oh, I'm going to try to stay in the military. I'm going to be, a double leg amputee guy trying to stay in the military. And, I try to do everything that I did before I got hurt and stuff like that. So.
And how long did you stay in the military with prosthetics?
So, of course, my daughter was born right around the time I got hurt. So my whole goal was like to beat her to walking and stuff, which ended up happening. But like I try to do everything and try to stay in the military. So I got hurt in 2010 and I was medically retired in 2012. So it was a little less than 2 years that I was still in the military. And during that time, my command that I worked at was awesome. Normally you go to like a temporary hold unit and you have to deal with all the regular military stuff and all that crap. When I got hurt, they're like, nope, you're coming to the training unit. You're not going to deal with that. We're going to, put you TAD here. You're going to, when we need you, we'll come get you. So your wife doesn't have to worry about it. If we need you, we'll come get you. You just go to your recovery, do all your stuff you need to do for prosthetics. And, we'll, help out in any way we can. So it was really cool to have that support from my command and the UD community. So, during that time, it was a lot different than most people's recovery. We'll put it that way.
It sounds incredible. So when do you find sport?
So during my almost 2 years of being in the military, but not being in the military, I got a call from one of the Navy Safe Harbor, the Navy athletic people saying, "Hey, we see your EOD, and we talked to some of the physical therapist stuff. We think you'd be a good fit for it because basically, I don't know if they're still using it, but a lot of the benchmarks that were in Balboa were set by me based off my recovery for a double A amputee because I was, walking really, really early and I started running before everybody. Like, I think I started running like a full mile, probably like 3 or 4 months after I got hurt. And
wow,
the weird thing is I hate running. Like, I hated running before I got hurt. I still hate running. But that was like the big goal.
Me too.
Was trying to get back to running for some reason. I don't know why. But then I started skydiving about 6 months after I got hurt. And then me and my sister ran a 10K together 1 year to the date that I got hurt. So they used like a lot of my benchmarks during like the recovery as some of their benchmarks that they used for some of the double A amputee guys. Because I was one of the first double A amputees at Balboa that was actually fully running.
That's such a great story.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that all the benchmarks or many of the benchmarks were set by you and maybe going to be hard to beat.
I don't know if they still stand, but I can say that I was first at one point.
Well, let's make a visit down there. Let's make a visit to Balboa. We'll double check on all your records.
Yeah. But yeah, during that time and stuff, the Navy Safe Harbor contacted me. They're like, "Hey, come out for our adaptive program." I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." And so that's when I got onto the Team Navy Warrior Games. And when you go out for the thing, they want you to try, during the camps, they want you to try all the sports. So like track and field, swimming, shooting, archery, basketball, volleyball, and all this stuff. Of course, shooting came really good for me. Swimming, I don't like swimming.
You don't float. So, yeah. but so I don't think people probably understand the Warrior Games and how that works. And so I'll just give a high level and then you fill in the blanks. But basically all the branches of service send a delegation to the Warrior Games. And it's not easy to make that team. You have to be one of the better athletes out of your service branch. And I know historically they sent, I think, 50 athletes. Probably when you were doing it, it was each branch of service got to send 50 athletes. I think they've reduced the number since then, the last couple of years, but I could be wrong. But talked about, so you made the Warrior Games team for the Navy pretty quickly after after your process.
So I forget. So when I was in, it was based off the number of combat injured per service. So of course, Army and Marine Corps have a lot more combat injured than Air Force and Navy. So they actually have a lot more people and they can actually send more people to the game.
Okay, got it.
And that's the way it was when I was there. Mm-hmm. It might be different now. I'm sure it is. But I know if you're a Purple Heart recipient, you're allowed to compete in the Warrior Games for life. So like I could go back and compete. I just can't compete in volleyball because I'm a national team athlete.
So you got a Purple Heart after the injury?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's incredible.
Yeah. So that's basically how they do it. And it's basically kind of like a Paralympic thing, just for a Paralympic setup just for the armed services. Mm-hmm. So
I want to go. Next time you go, you got to bring me as your baggage carrier.
Well, I might be going to this year's Warrior Games to go down as one of the delegation to kind of promote the Warrior Games. So since this is kind of I think it's the 10-year anniversary from the first one, that they're bringing in some of the past athletes to kind of talk about their experiences. Not just with the Warrior Games, but going on to Invictus and also going on to be Paralympians as well. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've been to the Marine Corps trials, Camp Pendleton, a few years ago, and that was pretty epic. I mean, it's like a 7-day program of every day. There's all these sports popping all over the base. I just went to see some track and field, so I didn't get to see all the sports, but it was pretty cool.
It's interesting. It's very interesting. I was very lucky in the time that I did it. We did our training camp or our selection process out in Hawaii. So that was actually really, really fun.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. So you've been to the Paralympics in Rio. You've done the Pan American Games in Peru. What's sort of your sort of favorite moment in sport in your sport career so far?
I think going down to Rio. So I don't know if you've heard of this man. This will be his third Paralympics. His name's Brad Snyder. He's a Paralympic, or was a Paralympic swimmer, is now a Paralympic triathlete.
Did he make the team for Tokyo?
Just found out about it.
He just made it?
Oh, yeah, so they just started posting on social media the other day about the triathletes.
For him. Okay, great.
So I was actually in Bethesda visiting my LPO, my leading petty officer, the girl that was in charge of me when I got hurt. Her husband had gotten hurt. So he ended up losing one of his legs over in Afghanistan as well. So I was actually in Bethesda visiting them when Brad Snyder and a couple other guys had just gotten hurt. So I met Brad Snyder in the hospital, and I talked to him and stuff like that. But the really cool thing was running into him down in the chow hall or the dining area down in Rio. I looked over and saw him. He had the big old bushy beard. I was like, man, you better shave that off or you go swimming tomorrow. He goes, oh, it's coming off tonight for opening ceremonies. So during opening ceremonies, right before we walked in, I just happened to walk right by him, and we kind of walked out at the same time. So that was really, really cool to experience that with someone that had already been to a Paralympics, but also being, he was won multiple golds and medals in London 4 years prior. So it was really cool to be part of that.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I might have been, my Warrior Games were 12 and 13. That's what the year is, because that was the year that Brad Snyder got hurt. And 1 year to the date of him getting hurt is when he won his first gold medal. So it was around 12, 13.
Okay. Got it. So tell me about the U.S. team, and what was the qualification process like to try to make Tokyo, and kind
of. So our qualification starts with World Cup or World Championships in 2018. I think the top two teams out of World Championship make the 8-man or the 8-team rosters for Tokyo. So the top two go. We ended up placing the highest we've ever placed at a World Championship. In 2018, we placed 8th. So that was pretty exciting for us. So we were, making a good stride and good progress for the year leading into Parapan-Ams. So we were, really excited going into Parapan-Ams. In Parapan-Ams, if you win, you make the 8-man or the 8-team slots for Tokyo. Mm-hmm. We made it all the way to the finals, and we were facing Brazil. We felt really good going into the match. I think we ended up winning the first set, and then it just wasn't in the cards. We didn't win the next 3, so we were out. And then we had one more shot. So the last chance qualifier kind of was supposed to work out in our favor. We got the bid to actually host the last chance qualifier in 2019 or 2020. Sorry. So when everybody was getting set up for, the last chance qualifier, Kazakhstan had come in. We were scrimmaging Kazakhstan that morning. Germany, Ukraine, and Latvia were actually just landing. And we got the word, hey, everybody close it down. Everybody's catching flights home. So what? Yep, COVID's shutting everything down. Everybody's flying home. So
is that the second week of March?
Yeah. So we were actually getting ready to, start our last chance qualifier. Everybody was flying in and they shut everything down. So Germany, Ukraine, Latvia, when they landed, they basically had to turn around and catch flights back. Kazakhstan ended up flying out the next morning with everybody. And then we ended up catching flights back home the next day. So then COVID hit. We sat out a year. minimal volleyball, not really doing too much except for working out. And then our last chance qualifier just happened last month in June in Germany. It was the last slot. So basically you had to win the tournament. It was 7 teams, 6 or 7 teams. So you had to, basically win out to make it. And we actually didn't perform as well as we need to. And we ended up losing out on our chance to go to Tokyo.
What do you feel like you took away from that process of not making it?
It's a learning experience. This was my first full quad, first full 4 years of going through training and stuff. So, spending that 4 years and, getting to the final couple matches that you need to win to make it. And, once you go to a Paralympics and stuff like that and not making out on it, it's kind of disheartening and, it kind of hurts. But, when we lost in June and we knew we weren't going to make it, we started, turning our gears and started working towards 2024 for Paris.
So the team, do you feel like the team is refocused and knows what they need to do to make sure Paris happens?
Yeah, I think, after seeing, being to a Paralympics and then, not making it the next quad, I think it kind of hopefully we'll start turning for some of the team and, make us refocus and get better and work towards 2024.
Yeah, because it's got to be so disappointing, but at some point, it's a little bit of a kick in the pants, right?
Yeah, can't really do much about it now. Like, we did everything we could to get where we were at, and we just gotta work for the next 4 years.
Yeah, that makes sense. So talk to me about your personal journey in terms of longer term goals in sport. How long do you want to play? And then any other dreams beyond sport?
Right now I'm kind of just playing it a quad by a quad. So I'm hoping to make 2028 here in LA. But we'll see.
How old will you be in 2028?
Oh, don't make me say it. It'll be like 40 something.
Wait,
where is that? Like 8 years from now, I'll be like 45.
Yeah, maybe that'd be amazing.
So if I can hold out till then, I might make it to LA, but we'll see. We'll see if the body can hold up that long.
Your nice beard might be gray by then.
It's already getting some. It's getting pretty.
Yeah, you're not comparing to my gray. That would be so cool. That's one of the cool things about Paralympic sport is that once you're good and you understand the sport and the technical aspects of it, I do feel like you can have a pretty long career.
Yeah, well, with like sitting and stuff, you're not jumping and doing all this stuff like normal volleyball players, so it like saves a little bit of your body a little bit, so you can actually prolong your career a little bit longer. But with that, like playing on your arms and stuff like that and swinging, so I don't have to worry about the swinging portion. So I have that in my favor because I'm libero, so I play back row. But like just making sure my shoulders, my wrists, my elbows and stuff hold out for the next, 8 years, should do it.
That'd be so cool, man. Yeah. That'd be so cool. All right, I'm going to shift into the final segment, which is our soul searching section. But to make it a fun start, what's a fun or interesting fact about you that I don't know?
I would have to say I love skydiving for some reason. I don't know why. I love skydiving.
And how many times have you gone?
I think I have right around 100 jumps, maybe a little bit more than 100 jumps total.
What do you like about it? It seems terrifying.
I don't know, because I'm petrified of heights. That's the weird thing. I'm petrified of heights.
That's the interesting fact. That you're petrified of heights, and yet you love skydiving. Yeah.
So for me, like if I go like walk up like an outdoor staircase, when you get above like a certain height, like I'm white knuckling, like holding on to the side. But like once you clip me onto like a safety or something, like a parachute or like a rope on the side, I'm fine. Like I'll hang over the edge like that. But once you take that away, I'm like, nope. Get me away from the edge.
That's great. All right. I'm not into skydiving, so you can have that hobby to yourself. What do you think your disability has taught you?
I think it's taught me to be a little bit more patient. Just because like I used to be like super go and like doing stuff like full out and stuff like that. I can't really do that. Not that I can't do that. It's like I got to be more cautious about doing certain stuff. Like I got to plan my evenings out a lot more than I normally would do. Like when I go to bed, I got to make sure stuff's within arm's reach of me. And if I got to use the bathroom before I go to bed, I got to do that so I don't have to put my legs on to go to the bathroom, to come back, take my legs off.
Wait till you're in your late 40s, my friend. Wait till then.
Yeah. I'm not looking forward to that one. But like, yeah, it's taught me to be a little bit more patient, like being just more mindful about certain things.
Yeah, that's great. What stresses you out, and how do you handle stress?
There's not really much that stresses me out too much. I think video games maybe stress me out a little bit, but
when you lose, like what's stressful about
I guess that's the competitiveness. Like when I lose at like a video game or something. But like,
do you ever throw the controller?
I've spent some money on a couple of different controllers. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. I think I know the answer to this, but what life accomplishment are you most proud of?
I have to say my kids. Like my daughter, she's 11 this year, and then I have a son who just turned 2. So I love spending time with them. I love just being around them, hopefully doing the cool stuff that I used to do back in the day, being able to do some of that stuff with them. So
breaking windows with baseballs.
Yeah, maybe go skydiving with them when they get old enough.
Oh gosh. What do you have a life philosophy?
I don't know if I really have a philosophy. It's more of just enjoying the moments. That's like the big thing. Enjoying every little moment you can, and seeing the good and stuff.
That's great. I don't usually ask this question, but I'm going to ask you because I feel like you have a good one. What about important mentors for you along the way, pre or post injury?
I would have to say like my parents and my coaches and stuff growing up. I think they instilled like a work ethic in me that kind of turned into my military career, but also turned into my recovery. So it kind of led me to the fact of like not feeling sorry for myself, and more of like pushing myself to like my limits. So like when I go for a run or something like that, like I always try to beat my last mile that I run. I always got to try to compete against myself. It's not so much competing about with other people and stuff like that. It's more of I want to be a better version of me every time I go out and do something.
But you say that, but then you're like competing against your siblings and
that's different. That's the sibling rivalry we have in our family. So the funny thing with that is we had
throwing your controller when you lose a video game, for God's sake. Come on.
But we had a sibling race a couple years ago, and I think it was like over the 4th of July weekend. But it was my older sister, me, my younger sister, my younger brother.
Like a running race?
Yeah,
like a running race.
Yeah. And we all got in line, and my uncle started counting off. And on one, I pushed my older sister over. I grabbed my younger sister by her hair and then took off running out in front of everybody. So you gotta find ways to beat people. But
yeah, by hook or crook. By hook or crook, John's gonna win the race.
Exactly.
That's great. Okay, that's fantastic. So I'm going to give you the microphone to wrap us up. So anything you feel like you haven't covered or shared, any shout outs to, people that you want to acknowledge, just whatever comes to your mind.
I just want to thank everybody that helped me along my path in my life. And I want to thank, Angel City Sports and, Hartford and stuff for giving me the opportunity, and you guys for giving me the opportunity to be doing this stuff, and for helping promote disabled sports, whether it be volleyball, track and field, or something, but just getting the word out about it. That's really a big thing.
Cool. Well, it's been a true pleasure to learn more about your background, your competitive streak, your fear of heights, among other things. But from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being a part of the Angel City family. and always, being willing to jump on to do a virtual session like we had to do last year, or fly out to LA for our big clinic tomorrow. We're really grateful to have you in the family. And, I know you have a big purpose on this planet to inspire a lot of people to do their best in life, whether it's on the field of play or off. So just thank you for your service, John, as well as, your commitment to our community to help us grow. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, that was one interview I simply didn't want to end. The stories of John disposing of bombs was riveting. I'm wishing the men's sitting volleyball team the best of luck in qualifying for the 2024 Paris Paralympic Games. And next up is Cody Jones, a longtime friend of Angel City, Rio Paralympian, author, speaker, and former high school baseball player.